Welcome to the International Straight Talk video series on the big emerging markets of the 1990s and beyond. The international marketplace for high-quality American goods and services is changing rapidly, and along with these changes come major new opportunities for American business. Of course, it takes specialized skills and know-how to compete successfully in foreign markets, and we believe that no area holds greater potential competitive advantages for American business than time and effort spent mastering the critical people side of doing business internationally. That's why the International Small Business Development Center, William Drake & Associates, GTE, TU Electric, and Texas Instruments have joined together to sponsor this video series. The writer, developer, and producer of the International Straight Talk video series and accompanying computer applications is Bill Drake, an internationally recognized speaker, trainer, and innovator in the area of business applications of human relation skills.
Hello and welcome to the International Straight Talk series, produced jointly by the North Texas International Small Business Development Center, an agency of the Dallas County Community College District, and by William Drake & Associates. We gratefully acknowledge the ongoing support of the U.S. Small Business Administration for the development of these programs. This International Straight Talk video is designed to help American business, especially your American small or mid-sized business, to be more effective when doing business in India. In addition to instructional narrative, throughout the video you'll find interviews with experienced American businessmen and women offering their frank advice to other Americans like you who want to gain competitive advantage in the high-potential emerging market of India. In Part 1, we'll cover 3 vital things you need to know to be effective in India. Don't assume anything when it comes to understanding diversity in India. We'll try to help. When you understand the Indian commitment to independence and self-sufficiency, you'll understand the core business psychology of this proud, accomplished people. Dealing with the Indian bureaucracy is an art form as well as a discipline, and we'll pass on advice from some Americans who've been successful.
One of the things I think is frequently misunderstood about India is the fact that it is a very poor country. And in truth, it is very poor. But on the other hand, out of the just slightly under 1 billion people in India, there are a tremendous number of people, tremendous number, hundreds of thousands, that have substantial cash, not just land, not other resources, but cash. It's a fraction of the whole, but it's there. And our observation has been that the principal investment that's required in India is not American dollars, but it's American know-how. We've observed every instance, in fact, just as recently as last week, we've had people saying, we want to invest with you, we want you to do this, we want you to do that. Money is no object. What they're looking for is American know-how, American expertise, and American management ability, not our money. The investment is really time. It's time to get to know the market. It's time to get to know the people. It's convincing them that you're not playing with them, that you're really serious about being there, and that you're going to take the time that it takes to understand this very diverse market. But it's not that hard to understand. It's just time.
India is the second most populated and 7th largest country in the world and covers 1/15 of the Earth's land surface. With over 800 million people, the Indian people are made up of many different ethnic and religious groups. For over 3,000 years, India has had literally hundreds of distinct communities, nations within nations really, each separated from the others by universally accepted and rarely challenged restrictions on such things as occupation, diet, marriage, and many other aspects of everyday life. The Indian Constitution recognizes 15 languages in addition to English for official communication and for education, and the total number of dialects in India is over 1,600. Less than 25% of the Indian people live in cities or even towns. The vast majority live as they have for hundreds of generations in the villages and beyond. Now, indicative of the vastness of this human geography is the Indian government's goal to have at least one telephone in every Indian village by the year 2000. Hindi is the national language of India and is spoken or understood in most, but not all, parts of the country. English is generally used in official correspondence by most government offices and other organizations. In fact, English is spoken and understood throughout the country, except in the villages where only a few words may be understood. Now, though New Delhi is in northern India, the status of New Delhi as the seat of national government for 40 years has made it even more of a hub for communication and commerce than ever before. People from all parts of India now live in New Delhi, and Hindi, as well as English, depending on the situation and the people involved, is used by all but an isolated few. The Indian government has long had a policy of assigning administrators and staff personnel to cities and towns outside their home region, and of mixing the regional composition of working groups within agencies and offices. All this has helped to further a strong national identity as Indians, an identity created in equal parts from pride of independence and a shared ethnic heritage. By the way, India's other major cities, as far as most Westerners are concerned, are Bombay and Calcutta, but enterprising American business people should take at least one step further into India and examine the opportunities in such dominant regional centers as Bangalore in the southern state of Karnataka or Madras in Tamil Nadu.
In India, the important distinction in how you deal with people is not so much on the which region are you in, the north versus the south, although there are cultural differences that you need to be aware of. The more important distinction is the national versus the regional level, because in India the overall policy is decided at the national level. It's very much more centralized than we're used to in the United States. But the national policies have to be administered at the local level. And then depending on what you're doing, the local officials may be able to have a strong positive or negative influence on what you're doing. For example, we were pursuing a fairly new high-tech venture in India. It was something that was new to the country. And as a result, we were really forging policy with the central government on things like export of computer software, which not a lot of people have done before. So a new ruling would come out from the central government, we'd receive the notification, and then we would go down to our local customs official and say, here's the notification, we'd like to bring these goods in. And they'd say, well, we haven't received the appropriate modalities or whatever. And so even though the policy had been issued at the national level, it hadn't filtered down through the bureaucracy, and the local bureaucrats weren't going to take a risk on doing something that they hadn't been officially notified of.
Language issues remain a major set of problems still to be resolved in modern India. The South Indian languages, for instance, belong to the Dravidian language family. Hindi and Hindustani are both much closer to the North Indian languages than to the South Indian languages, making them easier for Northerners to understand. The movement to make Hindi a true national language has always been resisted by South Indians for those reasons, but Hindi is increasingly gaining ground and usually proves very useful as an addition to English for anyone traveling in the South. Now, when modern Indian states were created at independence in 1947, most of them were set up along linguistic boundaries of their mother tongues, so that in Tamil Nadu, Tamil is spoken. In Kerala, Malayalam is spoken. In Bengal, Bengali is spoken. In Punjab, Punjabi is spoken. In Kashmir, Kashmiri is spoken, and so forth. Many Indians have learned to speak more than one of the Indian languages, but they often don't know how to read or write in all the languages they speak.
Since there is so much English and also so much interest in the United States, people know a lot about the U.S., you're lulled into a sense of security that, well, maybe these people aren't as different from me as I might have been led to believe. I was lulled into that sense from time to time, and then I would be jerked out of it by some episode or some mistake that I would make as a result where I had assumed too much similarity. And so I had to remind myself that there is a centuries-old culture there that only recently has had the British and Western imprint on it. And it surfaces in different ways. It surfaces in the relationships and the importance of that, and that's different from the United States. It surfaces in that there is a different set of rules about doing business, a lot of related to the concept we call integrity. They have a different kind of integrity. There is forthrightness that's valued in American culture, and it's not as valued in Indian culture, and sort of more of a behind-the-scenes way of working is a more acceptable way of doing things there. And when you're faced day to day with people who speak English and know a lot about the United States, you're lulled into the sense of security that maybe it is the United States, but it is not, and you need to be cautious and continually remind yourself of that.
The great diversity of India is also evident in her religions. Successive waves of people over the centuries, invaders and settlers alike, have brought many different religions and philosophies to India. However, the original indigenous Hindu religion has remained the primary or exclusive faith of a large majority of the people. India today is approximately 83% Hindu, 12% Muslim, 3% Christian, 2% Sikh, with Buddhists, Jains, and numerous other persuasions making up the diversified Indian religious environment. Though there are significant differences in Hindus from one part of the country to another, and even important differences in how the different groups practice Hinduism, especially in the matter of which gods are worshipped and which holidays are celebrated, there's a strong continuity and a unity of culture that seems rooted in the traditional Hindu way of life. Religious beliefs are a great source of both unity and diversity within India. Hindus and members of other faiths make religious pilgrimages to temples and sacred places throughout the continent, and this has created a continual movement and travel between regions of India for many thousands of years. This has resulted in a broad base of familiarity with differences, which in the Indian culture has not resulted in the suppression of differences, but in emphasis on a high tolerance level for differences of all kinds. While Hindus predominate in today's India, there are tens and even hundreds of millions of people in every part of India who identify with other religious beliefs and practices. It's said, for example, that there are more Muslims living in India than in Pakistan, mostly in certain areas of northern India and around Hyderabad, where the Mughal Empire was centered, but also scattered throughout the country. The practice of purdah, where a woman is not allowed to be out in public without being totally covered by a garment, is practiced less in India than in Pakistan and other traditional Muslim societies. Jains are known for their special temples and are strictly vegetarian and are philosophically unable to kill even a housefly. Jains also have a very high ratio of successful business people in their community. Sikhs come from the Punjab area and are viewed as rough and ready types by most other Indians. They eat meat and some drink alcohol, but they are forbidden to smoke and they don't cut their hair. Men usually wear a turban, which traditionally is also a hiding place for a small dagger. All of these elements combine, maybe unfairly at times, to make the Sikhs a controversial group in today's Indian society. The Parsis are a tiny minority of Zoroastrians who live mostly around Bombay and who are known for their traditional practice of placing their dead on ceremonial mounds or, in the countryside, on rock outcroppings to have the bones picked clean by the vultures. The famous Towers of Silence in Bombay are an example of an urban mountaintop constructed by followers of this complex and subtle religion, which is misunderstood by Westerners because of profound cultural differences in how we handle our dead. Christians are far more prevalent in the south of India and along the Indian Ocean, where the Portuguese were influential during colonial times, much more important than in the rest of India. Finally, there are relatively few Buddhists in India, considering that India was the original home of Buddhism, and the city of Varanasi, or Benares, is celebrated as the site where the Buddha received his first enlightenment. India won independence from over 300 years of British domination in 1947. It's very important for Americans thinking of doing business in India to understand how Indians feel today about independence and how they won it. What had been India under British rule was partitioned at the insistence of Islamic leaders into the Islamic nation of Pakistan, which included both West Pakistan and what was then East Pakistan, which later became Bangladesh, and the rest of the subcontinent, which became known as the independent nation of India. India gained her independence from Great Britain after World War II, in large part because of the inspiration of one man, Mahatma Gandhi. Without intending to oversimplify a complex and fascinating history, what is most important for Americans to realize is that the continuing impact today of how India won her independence is very important.